everybody, it's Johnny Mo. How are you today? I am with my friend David Childers and the one and the only T-Money, Tristan Ahumada. And we're going to be talking about the economy, unemployment numbers, tax return, average equity, and cash out refinance. Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. Lots of stuff. And
got to squeeze all that in.
Yeah, let's squeeze all that in. So, you know how I like to roll. I like to let David talk because it makes me look smarter.
You learned that pretty quickly. I learned that in the first episode.
Oh God!
Okay.
The good news is there. I've got 7 people that are researching our KCM research team that is writing everything, researching everything to make us all look smarter. That's the reality. And so this is good to start off this day with. Maybe both of you saw the unemployment numbers come out this morning. Some interesting things coming about that, and I'll mention some of that. Unemployment came out today at 6%. To put that in perspective, last month we were at 6.2%. Go back to February of 2020, 3.5%, just to give a bearing for that. 916,000 jobs added to the economy, and the bottom line there is we're seeing economic improvement. We talked about on the front end of these calls last year how this recession, this downturn, the pandemic has disproportionately affected those on the lower end of the earning scale, certainly from an age perspective, to not likely to be those out shopping for homes. We talked about how NAR, in their survey of home buyers and sellers, very small percentage of people under the age of 24 looking for homes and buying homes today. And that's been a large portion of who's been affected in this pandemic. But let me share a little bit of information that I think you'll find interesting about that. And then we'll have a conversation about it. Brookings Institute came out and said, and it was verified today, if GDP forecasts prove accurate, we estimate that monthly payroll employment gains over the next 10 months will average between 700,000 and 1 million per month, a lot faster than many forecasters anticipate. So the economy is improving, starting to improve at a quick clip. Again, 916,000 jobs added to the economy. We want to see everybody get a job back if they've been, displaced through this. And, if one person doesn't have a job, we want them to have it. This is a slide that we started out talking about, Tristan, when we first started these calls about the depth and length of unemployment. It's a very interesting look right now to put in perspective unemployment as compared to the Great Recession, where it took us 9 years to get back to where we were when we started that recession. And today the Fed's actually revised their estimate. You can see they're saying it'll be about 3 years to get back to where we started from relative to unemployment. So between the Wall Street survey of economists and the Fed, somewhere between 3 and 4 years right now is what experts are saying. No doubt we saw massive amount of unemployment last year, but as the economy improves, as vaccines roll out, as things happen right there, I think we can expect economic improvement to continue to happen across the country. It's also, we're here in April, it's hard to believe we're already in April of 2021. Very interesting statistic here I'll share with you. What percentage of a 3% down payment is covered by the average tax refund? Interesting statistics across the country, depending on where you're at. If you're in Texas, that covers 49% of the average down payment, your tax refund could. And depending on which state you're in, some good news there to share with people as the economy improves, as tax refunds come out over the next several months, depending on when people file and, all that goes on with that. So I think a lot that we have to be thankful for in our business, and a lot to be grateful for as the economy improves relative to unemployment, relative to people being able to go out and buy houses. If we can just get some more homes on the market, that's what we need to do.
I love that big map. I like that California was 15%. I think we won that. We definitely are the most unaffordable state in the United States.
Sure.
And, I was talking to somebody. I got a partner in Knoxville. I was talking to him before I got on the call, and he told me that Knoxville 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, Gary Vaynerchuk was like, if I was opening up a business, I'd want to do it right here. It's emerging, growing, whatever. And he had told me that there was 14 homes, phase 2 opened up in a lottery, 14 homes opened up. There was something like 1,400 people on the Zoom call for a lottery to be considered for one of those homes.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm seeing that not that significant. They got 2 Amazon centers coming in down there, right? Fulfillment and distribution or whatever. But that scenario I'm seeing happen all over the place, where there's multiple offers or 50 units are sold out in a matter of days and everything else like that. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So we do need inventory.
Yeah, NAR came out and said the average number of offers on a home in February, 4.1. That's up over last year. And I know many folks in different markets are like, hey, it's way above that in my market. But no doubt we're seeing that. Tristan, we were talking earlier about, all of this competition has kept this upward pressure on prices. The average equity in a home right now is $204,000, just over $200,000. And I think a lot of people are going to look up and say, hey, we've got this equity. How do we want to use it in our home? What do we want to do relative to maybe moving up or buying a home? And I think today, reminding people or asking them if they know how much equity they have in their home is going to be very, very valuable.
Dude, why else is that number important? Because we're seeing two things. I think number one, the consumer is now understanding that the world that we're living in is multiple offers, low interest rates, a crazy market. They finally understand that, like they're seeing that, right?
Yep.
But you also have on the horizon, because some of the media is saying, hey, but there's also this forbearance thing that's happened.
Sure.
Right. But they're not putting it in perspective as like we all did a year ago when we're looking at the numbers, 6 months back. And we're like, okay, look, here's forbearance. Here's what's happening. Some of it's being delayed. Some of it is being worked this way. But more importantly, a lot of these people have equity, right?
Yeah.
So what's important about that 200,000 or 204,000 in equity for most people? What's that going to help the economy with, the market with, just real estate in general with?
Well, we've talked about this coming out of the pandemic in 2020. No doubt consumers, learned their lesson in the housing crash and are handling equity differently. If there were to be a silver lining to 2008 and all the pain we felt in our business back then, it's been that people handle equity differently. Now, fast forward to that today. Last 2 weeks ago on the call, Johnny, we were talking about, forbearance. We did an update there. Realty Track came out and said, somewhere between 250 and 750 homeowners will be impacted once the eviction moratorium is lifted. Where does that number come from? It comes from taking those that were in foreclosure when the eviction moratorium were placed, those that are coming out of forbearance that are going to have problems and challenges, and starting to look at a high and a low side to that. If we take the high on that, we say 750,000 homes, those coming into the market right now, most markets, those homes would be sold immediately. I think our job right now, Tristan, to go back to your point, with significant equity is, why would a home go into foreclosure today? I'm not saying some would that might have a small piece of equity or an upside down for some reason or another, but most shouldn't have to. Most should be able to put their home on the market, maybe even sell for above list price and be an individual or a family that's going through a financial hardship and be able to put some money in their pocket. So I think that's the opportunity today.
And I just want to remind you, right, that the word forbearance and that whole thing, that's a clickbait. Right. In my opinion, it's clickbait, because I don't know if it was the last time or the time before, the number, the financial number that people are in forbearance about was, what was it, $6,000 roughly?
Oh yeah. The Urban Institute, the average amount of forbearance in this country is $6,000.
So it's not this alarming number when it looks horrible when you put pie charts up and you use the buzzwords, but when you actually look at the financial situation, $6,000, we all should be able to come up with that one way or another. And I don't think a bank's going to go through a foreclosure process, which costs 10 times that, or maybe 5 times that, for $6,000, right?
Yeah.
Tack it onto the back end and stay in your home. So I just don't see that will be a hard impact that's going to cause a whole bunch of inventory to come. I just don't think.
Yeah, the a couple of interesting things right now. NAR has said that the U.S. market is in a deficit of about 2.7 million homes right now. 2.7
Wow.
million. If you take what the high side of what's being said around forbearance, and again, this is high side, I'm going to call this worst case scenario, 750,000. It doesn't even begin to fill that up even halfway. The number of properties that we need on the market for those that want to buy them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So NAR says, the thing that I was looking at this morning, down 6.6% home sales, which again is another headline that scares you. You say, wow, the market's going down. That's, I think, in my opinion, just because there's no homes to buy. So the number of inventory and the number of sold homes will correlate with that.
Sure. I mean, we can't sell what we don't have. That's the real reality right now. And as we start to look at this, we're going to see some numbers year over year that are going to be skewed for the next few months. I'm going to say, here in April, last year we were on lockdown in a lot of places of the country. So we're going to see, numbers kind of skyrocket as they start to come in year over year because nothing was happening last year. And then we're going to go into a period where we crammed a bunch of business into several weeks, months, where we'll probably look a little bit down year over year. So we're going to get into a little bit of a where information that's coming out, you're gonna have to really dig into it. And that's what our team at Keeping Current Matters does. We want to start looking at week over week data. Where are we at week over week, month over month, relative to, the velocity of the market today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're on mute, Tristan.
Thank you. I need a shirt that says you're on mute. So that would be great. And a cup, Johnny Mo. I need a cup too.
Okay.
So on that velocity thing that you're talking about, one of the pieces that you guys just recently sent out that I'm diving in deeper on is the one about, is home ownership still considered part of the American dream?
Sure.
Right. And in it, you guys, I'm just going to read this part out. It says the survey that you guys took, it says, it reports 62% of millennials say a desire to be a homeowner is the main reason they're buying a home. To me, that's important because for years we kept on hearing that the millennials are the renter generation.
Right.
And if you see that as any indication as to where the market is going, if the rates remain relatively low and there's no other crazy thing that happens like a pandemic or anything like that, I have a feeling based on what we're seeing that the market's going to be similar for this whole year, right? With interest rates remaining low, people finally getting comfortable, because there are a lot out there that are saying, hey, I'm not gonna let people come into my home right now during the pandemic, right? So you still have those people that are reserving their time and saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable yet.
Yeah, sure.
You have that, you have the millennials that still want to buy. And then you still have, I don't know where I read it this morning, I think it was a Wall Street Journal saying that mortgage companies are only lending to like practically stellar people right now. Like average was 760 or more on credit.
Yeah, we've done several pieces on that, on the rising FICO scores of borrowers. And that goes into, there's two things that people start to get concerned with. Prices are rising. You talked about millennials; they want to buy. They're growing up, and 10 years ago we said, "Hey, nobody's going to want to buy a home. It's American dream's dead," and all that. And we're seeing today people saying, "No, it's the number one way people build wealth. They feel secure. They want to be a homeowner." All the reasons we know that people want to go out and buy. But a lot of people going, okay, prices are rising very fast. That makes me concerned. And one of the big differences between today and 2006 is the qualified borrower. Back then demand was inflated and wasn't real, where today we can go, it's very, very different. You've got to qualify. The idea of a qualified mortgage, which is based on the ability to repay, which sounds like a good idea if you're going to take out a mortgage. That's what's making up the buying population. But, a lot of people are asking right now, okay, homes are rising. People are doing things with that. Are we, you know, a lot of, I'll show you a couple of things here that a big question that we get a lot, you know, cash out refis are surging to the highest level since the financial crisis. You know, are people using their houses as ATMs again as refinances spike? Are we seeing a cash out refinance crisis? You know, one of the big questions on some people's minds is they see these headlines, they see the things that are out there that cause them to ask. And so I want to break it down just a little bit for you to give you perspective there. This is a look at home equity that's been cashed out in the billions. And we go back all the way to 2006, $321 billion cashed out in this country and cash out refis. This past year, final number, $153 billion. Yes, it's at the highest level since the housing crash, but nowhere near what it was back then. And like we talked about with equity, I would say this, during that time, homeowners learned a lesson. You know, back then, $823 billion was cashed out in 05, 06, and 07, whereas today it's $347 billion over the last 3 years. Rising, yes, hopefully in many cases, those that have been affected by the pandemic or been affected financially can tap into that equity. One of the greatest things that, you know, is given to us as homeowners outside of all the non-tangible benefits of owning a home, the equity growth is a strong, you know, asset for so many homeowners. The reality too across the country is tappable equity of mortgage holders has surged. Tappable equity is the amount available to a homeowner before they hit a max 80% combined LTV, loan to value. So if you think about you own a $100,000 home, you owe $80,000 on it. That's $80,000 loan to value. And we know today where we sit, that number is just over $7 trillion in tappable equity in this country. So a lot of that, you know, if we draw some, you know, correlations to the two markets back then in 2006, you know, where a lot of people saying, hey, it feels like that, you know, prices are starting to rise. 4.6 trillion in tappable equity, where today is 7.3. Back in 2006, the percentage of refis that were cashed out were 89%. Let that sink in for a minute. 9 out of 10 refinances were cash out refinances. Why is that? That's because when you bought a house in 2006 and you thought, well, who cares what we pay for it? It'll be worth $50,000 more in 6 minutes. We'll just go ahead and buy it.
That's
you know, today 33% of the refinances are cash out refinances. 321 billion I talked about cashed out back then as compared to 153 billion in 2020, representing 7% of tappable equity back then, whereas it's 2% today. So a lot of reasons to draw to look at that and say, hey, we are not in a cash out refinance crisis. People are handling their equity differently. They've got a lot of equity and it's served them well through the last year.
Did you have a question, Johnny Mo?
No, I just put my hand up and said I was 3 of those refinances.
Oh.
8 billion.
Well, it's when I saw that number, 9 out of 10 refinances back then were cash out refinances. It blew me away. I went back and looked at the interest rate environment. We were actually in an upward trending interest rate environment in 2006 through the middle of the year. So literally people were cash out refinancing as we were climbing in rates back then.
I bought my first house. It was a 2-family. I lived in it. I bought it from the lady that owned it. Needed a bunch of work. I bought it for $119,000. I think it was 2000 or 2001. I bought it for, by the time I got to closing, it was like a 45-day close. I was offered 180 for it. I did a little work to it. Refinanced at 229, refinanced at 249. Ultimately sold it for 369. And I mean, this is all over the, and then that was all by 2004. So over that 3-year period of time, I watched it. I witnessed it.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question, man. You brought up, what was the slide you brought up? Because I think, yeah, I got it. Let me show you the one you were showing here. This one right here, where homeowners learn their lesson. Do we have, or do you have the numbers like building up to 2005, like 2002, 3, and 4? because I'd like to see it only because this is cool to see. But I mean, David, what if we're all screwed up and this keeps on going up next year, right? What if 2021 is like 210, right?
So what the question is, do we have the numbers? Yeah, behind every one of these slides. So like when I give you the slides, I'll show you a little trick. If you right click into the slide, not that you have it in front of you, it'll reveal the data that makes up the chart.
Oh, perfect, dude. So I'm going to check that.
Coming into 2006, we, in 05, we were at 262, 04, 143. We're going to watch that. I don't have a crystal ball and can't say, hey, what are we going to be doing next year or this year in cash out refinances? But our team's going to watch it. We're going to say, hey, you know what? Cash out refinances are at their highest level since the peak, like I mentioned. But from a volume standpoint, nowhere near that. And what we can tell is that, one, they're handling equity differently. Two, a more qualified borrower in this case. There was a term back then coined called irrational exuberance, if you remember that. The Fed came out and said that.
Yeah.
Which was that we're going to call that in that case, there's just people are going out and going, it doesn't matter. We're going to just refinance this house in 6 months. We're going to pull a bunch of cash out of it. That's not the case today. Prices are rising due to the lack of supply on the market. Now, I'll show you something interesting if you can bear with me for a minute. That is due to the lack of supply that's out there in the market. I mean, that's the number one reason that we're seeing prices rise. And if I can find this slide, have you seen the slide that we've used? I think I used it here, Johnny, on new home starts, on new home builds, and the deficit we've been in. You recall that?
I do, but I don't recall the data.
I don't even know. I wasn't in that episode, guys. I don't remember.
I have ROM only memory at this point.
Yeah.
Oh,
let me pull that up to show you this. So prices are rising because we're in this situation where we are undersupplied across the country. I found the slide. That's largely due to prices due to low interest rates and lack of inventory. Why are we in the low inventory situation? The answer largely is found right here. These are single family housing units completed going all the way back to the 70s. Wow. There were 4 consecutive years back in 03, 04, 05, and 06 that were record-setting number of homes brought to market. There were 3 years in a row that more than 1.5 million homes were built in this country. It was 04, 05, and 06. Never happened before, never happened again. But for the last 13 years, we have fallen below the 50-year average in new home builds in this country.
Whoa. That's
the issue right there. You go back to the 70s and 80s, there were more homes built in this country back then than there are today.
Dude, well, hold on, I'm going to take a picture of this one. I know you send this to me, but I'm still taking a picture.
Yeah.
That's crazy that 07, 08, and 09 really affected builders that much.
Well, if you remember back then, think about the lending standards for a builder. If you went to a bank in 2009, 10, or 11 and said, hey, we found a lot we're thinking about building on, the banks were like, no, we don't want to talk to you. We don't want to see you. We don't come in our area. They had enough lots. They had enough builders that were upside down that the construction lending took it on the chin.
Yeah.
And right now, one of the issues with new construction is the price of lumber and the materials. Sure. Off the charts.
That's very true, guys. That's very true. And I mean, also, I don't know if you guys were reading, but the CFPD is now buckling up on some of those rules that they had been relaxed on for during COVID, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, that's going to possibly create a bottleneck when it comes to qualifications as well on our side for clients, right?
Sure. I think lenders are looking at right now, obviously reduced volume is going to drive the price up for a lender. That's what's going to happen. And they're anticipating more regulation. Those are the two factors that lenders are looking at right now.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I think we have one question or a comment. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, it says time.
Oh, it's just time. Oh, never mind.
Oh, somebody said, what's the CFPB, Consumer Protection Financial Bureau? What was, kind of came out of Dodd-Frank, coming out of the housing crisis, which governs a lot of lending rules, lending standards.
Dude, I never thought to explain that, but you know what? Thank you. That makes a lot of sense because it was massive coming out of that recession. But during the Trump presidency, the CFPB was kind of like super silent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly it has been the case. Now, I will say this: I used a slide several weeks back. The nominee for the head of the CFPB has said publicly he's going to do everything in his power to avoid any housing crisis due to forbearance and due to the pandemic. So I think it's going to work both ways for us. I think they're extremely active in helping homeowners, and lenders are looking at probably increased regulations.
All right. Well, hopefully there's a balance, because I remember last time they just had too much power, dude.
I think that's the question we always want to ask.
Like way too much power. Well, that was my opinion anyway. I'm sure Johnny Mo has his opinions too, but
I have to keep them personal.
I was going to say we'll keep those outside of this. David, thanks for being on it. Can you send those slides to us? Because
absolutely,
I think I am going to do a YouTube live diving deeper into it, and I'll use you guys' slides as well.
Absolutely, I will send them over, and everybody else on here, we can get them to them as well. Great to be on. Thank you.
Currentmatters.com to start your 14-day free trial.
I love that, dude. I
always,
every day I wake up, that's one of the websites I open every single day.
We are grateful for it. Thank you both.
Thanks,
and
guys.
just a side note, everybody, I did this entire webinar with Charlie on my lap, and I know you're jealous.
I love that. Say bye to Charlie. See you guys.
Peace out, everybody. Be safe.